Lauren told me she's in New York. I'm a little jealous.
What is she doing in New York?
I have no idea.
Like in New York State or Mac? Your hair's in the way.
She seemed really sad about missing class. So she's like, oh, I have to go to New York. Okay, did everybody see on a photo the chapter that I read?
Yes.
That's right. I'm giving you 2 days to read it. It's like 30 pages long. But basically, the textbook I brought in whenever the last time we met, it's the chapter on plasticity from that. So, yes. Yes, the chapter I uploaded to Gizmodo. I just think it kind of makes it clear what we're talking about with elasticity, and it also has some better ways of showing it. So, it has a lot of examples, so I encourage you to work through those examples and kind of try to figure out what's going on. Okay. Any questions before we start? I always feel weird when like there's a field trip on Thursday and there's no class. It's like, oh, it's the weekend, and then Friday is like work because you have to be in class again. I feel you, Missouri. How was the field trip yesterday? Did you learn anything?
Chemistry is a lot more visual, a lot harder, it's a lot easier to understand when you can observe visual.
Yeah. I took a chemistry class at Block Talk. I was homeschooled, but I was able to do lab experiments. Okay. Price elasticity of supply. Basically, same principle as we've been using, but we're looking at the change in quantity supplied now over the change in the percent change of price. So the percent change in quantity supplied over the percent change of price. It depends on the responsiveness of the quantity supplied to a change in the price, and it looks like I wrote price twice. Whether the supply is elastic or inelastic is dependent upon the ability and willingness of firms to alter the quantity they produce as they increase. As the, wow, let me look up what I was actually supposed to say. Okay, so it's measuring the responsiveness of firms to a change in the price, just as we've measured the responsiveness of consumers. So so the quantity supplied to a change in price measured by dividing the percent change in quantity supplied of the product by the percent change of product price. So here it is. You know, at midnight, all of these look like perfect. And then in class the next morning, not quite. Yeah. Okay, so elasticity of supply measures the responsiveness of quantity supplied to the change in the price of the good when all other influences on selling things remain the same. No idea where. Part of the problem is I've started using other sources. I'm trying to find everything into one. yesterday I got the instructor's manual to this textbook in the mail. By some miracle, I was able to find it online, even though it's like 20 years out of date. Okay. So, the good news is I found this. The bad news is I now have answers to all of the homework problems in your book. So that'll be something to look forward to. I'll probably assign some. Oh, as the price increases. Okay, so in the regular demand curve, so the price that's extra on the top just pins that down to here as the price increases. So on the regular supply curve, we took note that as the price increases, what happens to supply or quantity supplied? So as the price goes up, what happens to quantity supplied? Increases, right. And then as the price goes up, producers are more willing to produce things because they can make more money. So this is saying that their responsiveness to a price increase, like how much they're producing, is kind of dependent upon the elasticity of the product. So the size of elasticity depends on two general factors. One being the resource substitution possibility. So resource, again, those things we use to make other things. So the more common, readily available resources are used to produce a product, the greater is the elasticity of supply. So it's more sensitive to changes in price with the more readiness. And then the other thing is time elapsed since the price change. So we talked about this a little bit with demand, but when it's on the supply side, the more time that passes after a price change, the greater is the elasticity of supply. So we have short run, kind of medium run, and then long run. In the short run, or I guess on the slide, do the other way. So in the long run, supply is more elastic. The momentary supply is the least elastic, and then the short run supply is intermediate between the other two. So, oh geez, size piece chalk here. Okay, so short run is usually a couple months, at most 2 years. Long run, we're looking in years. And then moderate or momentary, it's kind of like the right now. Okay. Which they have this one between the two. No. So, okay, so we have long run, short run, momentary. So, if we think about this, if a pizza parlor wants to increase the quantity they're supplying, they can only make as much as they have the supplies to do in that one particular day. So their ability to increase the supply or the amount of pieces they're producing in one day is limited. So it's kind of inelastic. They can't really change it. But then if you wait a day or two, they have time to order more supplies, get more workers to produce more, and they can increase their supply, but it takes a couple days. Okay, does that kind of make sense? So immediately they can't necessarily just increase the quantity they're supplying, but given a short period of time, they can produce more, and then in the long run, they can also produce more. So I think on the next slide I have an example. Okay, so the time elapsed since price change continued. And here's the example I should take. Okay, so generally firms have difficulty increasing the quantity they produce in the short run For example, the pizza parlor cannot produce more pizzas on any one night than is possible using the ingredients on hand. If given a day or two, they can get supplies needed to produce more pizzas. So, supply is inelastic if we measure over a short period of time, but it becomes increasingly elastic the longer the period of time over which to measure it, and that's because they can get more resources to produce more. So if products, this is just like a little side note, so products require resources that are themselves in fixed supply. They're an exception to this rule. And that would be an example of a winery. They may rely on a particular variety of grapes to produce wine. And if all of the land on which grapes can be grown is already planted in the vineyards, then they can't really increase the supply of that wine. So it'll be inelastic even over a long period of time. It takes quite a few years to even get a grape vine growing, I think it's like 7. So they can't necessarily increase the supply of that particular brand, that grape, right? So with that one, it'll be inelastic over even a longer period of time. So with supply, we also have perfectly inelastic, inelastic, and perfectly elastic. So on the vertical, elasticity of supply is equal to 0, and so as there is an increase or decrease in the price, it causes no change in the quantity supplied. And then for unit elastic, a 40% increase in price causes a 40% increase in the quantity supplied. So these are moving now in the same direction, because the more money they can make, the more they're going to produce of that good. And then perfectly elastic, any increase in the price causes the quantity supplied to become infinite. So the quantity supplied is, the elasticity is equal to infinity. And I think I have an example in that slide. Okay, so perfectly inelastic supply, so the vertical line would be a parking garage. They have a set number of spaces available, so even if the demand increases, it's not like they can just magically make another parking spot here. So, if demand increases, they could raise the price, but they could not immediately add parking spaces. However, over time, they may be able to purchase more land to build onto the parking garage, and therefore increase the supply. But in the short run, supply would be perfectly inelastic. They just can't change it, okay? So that would be the vertical line. A compact glass rate of elasticity, so this is just looking at all of them we've gone through. So we've looked at price elasticity of demand, cross elasticities of demand, where we're comparing, looking at the relationship of substitutes and complements, income elasticity of demand. Did we ever talk about that one, or did that one get kind of missed? Do you remember? Income elasticities of
I
demand?
don't know what it is. Oh, we did that one. I think we did.
We did? Okay. It's, looking at how income is affecting quantity demanded. So, we talked about normal good, inferior goods with that, and then we just talked about the elasticity of supply. In the chapter that I added to Edmodo, there's actually a really pretty page. Like, this one's okay, but the other one is a lot nicer. So, at the end of the chapter online, there's just a nice breakdown of if elasticity is this. So if, with price elasticity of demand, it has the formula, so percent change in quantity demanded over the percent change in price. And then also included that midpoint formula where we did quantity 2 minus quantity 1 over quantity 1 plus quantity 2 over 2. So basically, the way we've calculated this, we're just using the midpoint formula instead of. And then cross elasticity, we're again looking at substitutes and complements and the quantity demanded on that. At the end of the chapter I added online, I added the extras because you guys seem interested in this Harry Potter stuff. And actually this is saying Borders changes the rewards program, which maybe they shouldn't have because they've gone out of business since. Unfortunately, but now we have Barnes and Noble everywhere. Yeah. Okay, any questions?
a nice custom.
It is. I don't really go there very often, but when I do, I always find something.
I like Borders better.
Yeah, I like
I did too.
My favorite is Hyde Brothers on Low.
What is it called?
Hyde Brothers on Low.
Never even heard of
It's
it.
this like tiny bookstore. My favorite thing is they have a cat that just like hangs out there.
Somebody likes to throw the cat. Let's go ahead and look at some problems. Let's see. Should we do it? Okay, so we already did the homework one, so we'll just work on some problems until we get into class. Next week we'll go to chapter 6, so in addition to reading the chapter on Edmodo, start looking at chapter 6 as well. Okay, so let's do, use the following graph for Yolanda's frozen yogurt stand to answer the following question. Other questions left. Okay, so on the graph we have price, quantity per day. $2.50, $3. Okay. Well, I should probably put that in this one. So quantities at point A is 200, at B is 225, and at C it's 300. Okay. So let's use the midpoint formula to calculate the price elasticity of demand on demand curve 1 between point A and point C. And the price elasticity of, so we'll do that one, and then also for the demand curve D2 between points A and B. And then we'll determine which demand curve is more elastic. Does anyone feel brave enough to come to the board to work it out? Lauren Goodman, thank you. Next time you're in, you're gonna be doing a board problem. Okay. Alright, so we had Sydney yesterday, we also had Renee. What about Miss Lynn? Would you like to do a problem on the board? It's alright, your class can walk you through it. So. Okay.
What are you trying to do?
In the first one, we're looking for, oh, I should probably label B1. We're looking for the elasticity between point A and point C on B1. So, if you wanna write the midpoint formula or the percent change, do you remember that?
40%? Wait, what?
It's like, you can either write it in the percent change, of quantity demanded over the percent change in price, or you can do that midpoint formula where it's Q1, Q2.
What's the line now?
Okay.
Does that work? It does the same thing, right? Okay.
So go ahead and write that out.
What's the average?
No, it'll be the percent change in price. Right, and then we did that, we found that by doing, since we're looking at quantity, we're looking at the quantity of A minus the quantity of C over A plus C over 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you follow that? Okay, so so on the top line, what is she writing? Yeah, 300 minus 200 over,
200 plus 200 divided by 2.
yes. So we have what? Oh, we're doing subtraction on top.
100.
Yeah, there you go. And then on the bottom here,
500 divided by 2.
there you go. So that's 250. Oh, don't worry, I got this. 100 divided by 250 is 0.4.
Well,
So
that makes
equals
sense.
0.4, yeah. Okay, just 0.4. Yep, okay. Okay, so we have the quantity, percent change in quantity demanded, now we need to find the percent change in price, doing the same thing, but just using the $3 and the $2.50. So,
Say it again.
$3, $2.50, we're looking for the percent change in price. So this calculation
same thing,
is the
but
percent
with
change in quantity demanded, yeah. So yeah, $3.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, $3 minus $2.50. Yes. So we have 0.5 on the top. It's just 0.5, so 3 minus 2.5, right?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
And then on bottom, we have 5.5 over 2, which would be 2.75. And then 0.5 divided by 2.75 is 0.18 repeating, so you can just put 0.18. Alright, so now that we have the changes in price, we need to put them into this. So we're gonna take 0.4 divided by 0.18, so if you wanna write that again somewhere. Anywhere.
Okay.
0.4 divided by 0.18, and we get an answer of 2.2 repeating. So do we have elastic, inelastic, or unit elastic?
Yeah,
Elastic.
What was that?
Elastic.
Yes.
What are we putting this again to? Our
Um,
answers can-
Yeah, I'll write this on the board again.
Okay.
Okay, so elastic is greater than 1. And then inelastic is less than 1. And unit elastic equals 1. Alright, so since this is greater than 1, it's elastic. Okay. So who wants to do the demand curve through now? Okay.
How we just did the name for two?
We did D1. Okay, so what quantities does she have to work with?
23.
Yep. Minus 200. Alright, so we have 25 on top, and then 425 divided by 2. So we have 25 over 212.5. Which is 0.117, so we'll go ahead and just put 0.12. Okay, so that's the percent change in quantity. Now we need to do a percent change in price. $2.50. $2.75. Okay, well. 2.75. So 0.5 divided by 2.75 is 0.18 repeating, so you can just write it, yep. And then 0.12 divided by 0.18 is equal to 0.6 repeating, so just do 0.67. So is that elastic, inelastic, or unit elastic?
Inelastic.
Right, so it's less than 1. Page.
You said this is the demand 2 curve, right?
Yes.
She can't see you.
So we're doing like point A on the graph and point B.
Yes.
Okay, so. Okay, I don't know why that was confusing earlier. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, so in the first one,
We were using point A and point C.
we did A. Oh. We did A and C. And then that one we thought was elastic because it was 2.2.
Mhm.
And then we did A and B, and it's inelastic.
Mhm.
So, D1, the curve is elastic, whereas D2 is inelastic.
Oh wait, it looks like the D1 curve has the A and the C points on it, doesn't it?
The D1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we just did D2.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So is the midpoint formula quantity 2 minus quantity 1 over quantity 1 minus or
Plus, yeah. Plus quantity 2 divided by 2. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So is elastic, like, would that be the good thing or the bad thing?
I guess it kind of depends. So elastic means it's not sensitive to price change. So, I guess it depends on if you're the person demanding the good or the supplier.
Like if you were selling the
If you were the producer and you were selling something and you could increase the price and it's not very sensitive, instead of making $2 for an item, you could be making $5 and you'd still be at the same demand.
Okay, so you.
Or demand wouldn't decrease as much.
You'd want, so if you were the seller, you'd want to have the elastic, but if you were the buyer, you'd want to have the inelastic.
Right, because the inelastic just means you're really sensitive to price change, and if it goes over a certain price, you're just not gonna buy anything of that. You'll either find a substitute or possibly go with that. Okay, any questions? Alright, let's see. I don't think we have time for another problem. How are your papers going? 1 week. Okay, did everybody show me theirs? I feel like there's one group who didn't. Okay. Alright.
Can you just like the rest of the time to like talk with our group?
Yeah, you only have like a minute or two, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, me either. Lauren turned hers in. Yeah. I don't know where it is. She did like a little scroll.
Oh, is this it?
That's mine.
So for different places, we're increasing what it is, right?